Well, folks, here we are for another Tim Talk. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Um, I want to talk today. I want to back up. I want to remind you every time the purpose of these Tim Talks. There's many purposes. One absolutely is that you build your personal relationship with nature. That nature becomes a paramount part of your life, and that through your actions, you become an earth caretaker, committing your life to caring for the planet, and then turning that commitment into action. I believe that's the great hope we have for the future. If we can get billions of people doing it, oh my God, what we can do. It's endless. That's what gives me great hope. So thanks again for listening. Um, and in the interest of building our relationship with nature, I'd like to have the conversation today will be creating ceremony in our lives. Creating ceremony. Now, it's interesting. Often when we think of ceremony, we think of religion. And I am not opposed to religion. I actually went for 4 years off and on to a school that studied metaphysics. And in the studying of metaphysics, our goal was to look at many of the religions of the world and try to track back to their purity, to that time when they were pure, before human beings kind of grabbed them and shaped them and molded them into, I don't want to sound too judgmental, but forms of controlling people. I myself was raised Catholic. I'm Irish. My father was in the Catholic Church. And up until about 9 years old, we went to church. I went to catechism, which was a school for kids. And then one day my father got mad at the church. He said, all they ever want is money. And he left, and we never looked back. But I actually had some really good experiences with it. And one of the things I learned to appreciate through the Catholic Church, and I think that they do very, very beautifully and well, is ceremony. Beautiful ceremony. And I'll never forget that. I took that teaching with me. Then in my life's journey, I came across, as I was spending most of my summers in a little town called Ronan, Montana, in the middle of the Flathead Indian Reservation. And I guess the Flatheads at some point had sold a piece of their land to someone, and they created a town within the reservation. And I remember the native Indian people, and I've mentioned this before, we all got along great together, and they loved kids, and I'd often spend a lot of time with them. And I remember one day I was walking along, and I heard a noise, which turns out was a drum beating. And I went to this kind of bushy area and looked into this opening, and I saw what I didn't know then, and I do know now. It was a sweat lodge, and some elder Native American Indian men singing songs. And I was kind of spying on them, and it was kind of scary and kind of exciting. And all of a sudden, one of them, I guess his intuitive side, his inner vision, which we've talked about, because I didn't make a sound, looked over at me, and he goes, come on in, with his eyes. So I thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me. And I went in, and of course, they didn't kill me. They were sweeter than could be. They took me in, and they sang songs, and then we went into the sweat lodge, which, for those of you that haven't done a sweat lodge, I mean, they could write a book, countless books on the incredibleness of a sweat lodge ceremony. It's probably my favorite, most moving ceremony I've ever participated in my life. And they took me in to a covered, dome-shaped shelter, and they brought hot rocks into the middle of it, and we closed the door, and they sang songs and poured water on the rocks, and the steam went up and made us hot, and we sang and we purified. Another name for the sweat lodge back then, and I think today would be true, is the Purification Lodge. And we would release through sweating and screaming and yelling and singing stuff we were holding on to. And it was very much about teaching us to be in the moment. No past and no future. And that could be a whole other Tim talk. The importance of being present, fully present with something, not in the past or the future, just right where you are now. With that sweat lodge, with that tree, with that animal, present, present, present. Man, that's an amazing thing. And I knew when the lodge ended and those men were so sweet and good to me, that was for me. I thought, man, I'm not a Native American. I'm an Irish boy, but man, if I go back to my ancestors, and it's interesting, if I go back to my Celtic Irish ancestors, before modern times, when they lived with the earth, just like the Native American people did in North America, they had a sweat lodge too. It was built a little differently. Instead of built with sticks and covered with hides, like the Native American ones were, theirs was covered with stone and wood, but same idea. They brought hot rocks in, they sang songs, they prayed. And I've learned many cultures have a similar sweat lodge as a ceremony. Depending on where around the world, it changes a little bit, but the idea is very similar. So that became a huge part of my life. I began to go to sweats whenever I could, and when I was a kid, and I remember I'd go backpacking as a kid, and I'd create my own little sweat lodge with a tarp, and I've been sweating ever since in my life. And so that's one really profound, how do you organize ceremony for lots of people, although it can be for just a few people. And it's life-changing. What I want to get into here a little bit more, though, is creating personal ceremony in nature for yourself. So think of the idea of our earth is a sacred being. Our earth is love herself. And as a sacred being, it's a beautiful thing to honor her for her sacredness and for the fact that she gives us all that we need to live. So it's really good to highlight that at times in life. So to create your own ceremony can be very simple. It has to do, you could learn songs from the earth. You can go out alone in a big meadow or sit in a tree and just start humming or making sounds and see what comes out. You can make a circle of rocks and sit in the middle of it. And you could mark the four directions, as a lot of our ancestors used to honor the four directions, literally as living beings with their own personality, each one north, south, east, and west, completely different. You can think of other directions like what's above, spirit, what's below, earth mother, and the seventh direction, that was 5 and 6, and the seventh direction would be everything together, or where you are at any given moment. So there's north, south, east, west, above, below, and where are you at any given moment is the seventh direction. All connecting you to the spiritual side of nature. You could make a circle and sit in it and make it a powerful spot. You could walk in the woods in the different directions. You could climb a tree and sit in it and sing a song, or sing a song to the tree. You could collect some feathers that you find in the woods, or bones, or beautiful rocks, or wood, and create earth art and sit with that. It does not have to be complicated. Remember, I've talked a lot about simplicity and the importance of it. The real part that really matters is not the visual and not the physical that you make, although that is important and wonderful. It's what comes out of your heart, the purity of it, your commitment, your true commitment to that ceremony. And ceremony can happen over and over again. It becomes more powerful each time. It's like I mentioned sweat lodge before. One sweat lodge is great. 100 sweat lodges is magnificent. 1,000, I can't think of a word to explain how amazing, right? So the more you do ceremony, the more consistently, and you come from the heart, the more it keeps you in the moment, connecting to the spiritual side of nature, that living essence that builds your relationship with her on a level that's really quite profound, so that you feel what the earth feels, you hear what the earth says, and you're willing, when she hurts, to protect her, to care for her. You feel what she feels. You feel what the animals feel. And that ignites a fire in you to protect and caretake the earth. So ceremony is saying, I love you, earth, so I'm going to stop my life for a moment. I'm going to sit in this circle. I'm going to sit in this tree. Or I'm going to walk in an intentional way in this meadow. And in so doing, I'm saying I love you, and I'm going to be present with you. So will you, Mother Earth, come into me? Will you meet me halfway? Will you awaken me to the deeper side of you? So ceremony, you can create a ceremony. What a lot of people don't understand is different cultures have ceremonies, different religions have ceremonies, different people do. You can create ceremony that's unique to you. And really, sky's the limit. If your ceremony has heart, if it's honest, if it's pure, if it's coming from goodness, you're not going to make a mistake. All right. So I say, make a circle, make a square, sit out in a meadow, pick some flowers, and make a beautiful arrangement, and sit and look at them. Sing some songs, make some sounds, listen to the sounds of the earth, and let them come into you, and sing with the earth. Really, be creative with it. Let your creative side come forth, and have fun with it. And I think there's ways of looking at it, like have your own personal ceremonies that you do just for you, uniquely for you. You could have a ceremony that you create that's for you and the person you love. It's just for the two of you. Deep ceremony to bond your love and make it stronger. You know, there's such a thing as a marriage ceremony, as you know. Well, there can be ceremonies like that, but also once you're together with a person, whether you're legally married or not, you could do a ceremony every year to just kind of speak to each other and say how you feel, and with that deep love and intention, and make something beautiful to represent your love, like some rock art or stick and rock art or something like that. You can create ceremony for families or small communities of people or large communities. It's really endless. You see what I'm saying? So I challenge you, as I start to wrap up here, to think about it. Write your ideas down. Talk about it with people. But don't be afraid to create ceremony. And start humbly, just yourself. And there's some, again, I'll repeat, only going to be for you. And then expand out and see where it goes. Okay? I promise you, it's life-changing. Each time you do a ceremony, it'll become more powerful. Okay? Each time, it'll become more powerful. So, ho to the ceremony, and good luck to you. Ho.